Do you feel like your nonprofit's funding needs or programs or your organization is just too unique for funders? I hear this kind of thing all of the time. And today I want to talk about why that's not the case, why you can actually find funding for anything. I'm Amanda Wallner-Roberts, and this is Grants with Amanda. So as nonprofits, we often get trapped into thinking funders want a specific thing. We get trapped thinking we can't ask for general operating expenses. We think we can only ask for program or project expenses. And we often think we can't ask for staff expenses or, fill in the blank, whatever it is. It might be staff, it might be transportation, it might be building renovations or capital issues or capacity building things. You might think you can't get funding to pay for a strategic plan facilitation. But when we're trapped in this box thinking, here's this huge long list of things we can't get funded, then we're really stuck. We're stuck with our shoestring budgets. Instead, I want you to think about everything you need and focus on what funding you need. We need funding for this. We need funding for this. We need funding for this. And some of that might be included easily in a general operating expenses grant. But when we really break it down, it's so helpful because we can actually find funding for anything. So why do we think we can't? Why do we feel trapped inside this box? Well, some foundations, some grantors will say, we don't fund staff expenses, or we don't fund building renovations. And for them, they don't fund that. And you know what? That is okay. Just because one grantor doesn't fund something that you need doesn't mean there's not another grantor out there that would love to fund that. We also, in addition to seeing it once or twice, we don't fund X, we don't fund Y, we feel like general operating expenses aren't a sexy enough ask for funders. If we're not serving children and this 300,000 children every year, we think our grant application is not going to be competitive. But that's just not the case. There are funders out there that care about all sorts of issues in all sorts of ways. And they are open to funding things now more than ever. Seriously, with everything that has happened through the pandemic, funders are realizing more and more how much rent is an important expense that nonprofits have and need funding for. So these things that we have previously felt like we could never ask for a grant for this, even more so now than before, it's on the table. We can ask for these things. So we're also stuck in our shoestring budget mindset. And so we feel like it's such a mountain to climb to get to that next level, to get what we truly want as a nonprofit, to get what we really need as a nonprofit. And so because we have this kind of limited, narrow mindset, we feel like, oh, we're always going to have to struggle with funding. Fundraising is always going to be a hassle. We're never going to have enough money for what we need. We really trap ourselves. And so what we're doing by not asking funders for what we truly need is we're saying no for them. We're rejecting our own applications before we even write them. We are putting ourselves in a box that the funders aren't putting us in. And it's creating this resentment. I've seen a lot of nonprofits be a bit resentful towards foundations, but the foundations would actually fund a lot more things if we just asked. Now, we can't just say we need rent because we need rent. That's not a compelling ask. So in addition to finding the right opportunities after identifying what we need to be creative and also authentic and creative, those go hand in hand, in how we are positioning our asks. So we don't need rent just because we need rent. We need rent money so that we can serve this many people a year, or so that we can continue providing XYZ services. We don't need a new staff member just because we want a new staff member, just because we're kind of getting lazy. Like, that's not it at all. Why do you actually need a new staff member? Is it to expand services? Is it to support existing services and serve your clients better? There is a reason beyond just we need money. And so when we incorporate that next level beyond just we need money into our grant applications, that's what helps connect the dots for funders. Because sure, maybe some funders aren't interested in rent per se, but they would happily fund rent knowing that funding allows your organization to serve so many people in the community. You know, we have to connect those dots for funders. So just a quick recap, you can find funding for anything. You shouldn't trap yourself in a box thinking no one's going to want to fund this. Instead, really identify, here's what our nonprofit needs. Go find opportunities that might be a good fit for that. Call the funders, talk to them about that, and then really position those asks to show what it means, what that next level, impact or outcome is going to be. This is all stuff I teach in the Successful Grants Toolkit, and it's so great because when we truly change our mindset and realize, oh, we've been trapping ourselves, the opportunities for what we can get grants for are endless. And it's so exciting to see nonprofits really start asking for what they need, really start getting bigger funding amounts from funders, and really reaching out there and building those relationships with funders. So this is what I teach in the Successful Grants Toolkit, my online grant training and coaching program. And I'm very excited because that is opening up to new members soon. So enrollment is opening soon. If you want more details about that, please feel free to just send me a message or put a comment on this video. But in the meantime, if you're ready to start increasing your nonprofit's grant funding today, I highly recommend downloading my free nonprofit grant guide. And I've got a link to the grant guide in the description of this video. And what that does is walk you through, here's the overall strategy, all of the steps we need to take in order to get grant funding. And what's happening, as I've seen over and over, a lot of us are missing some of those key steps, like identifying what we actually need and then finding the funding for it. Not just trapping ourselves thinking funders don't want to fund this or funders don't want to fund that. So I encourage you to download that today. And again, if you're interested in more information about the Successful Grants Toolkit, feel free to send me a message. Great.